right. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Bird Rights Podcast. We are finally doing another football episode after not doing one since the Super Bowl, because the draft is coming up in 3 days. So we decided that we're going to do a little mock draft here. And we have a special guest. Declan, you can introduce him, I guess, since
Today we have mock drafting legend. I believe he spends 100% of his free time mock drafting. Brad Pollard, who is technically my father. So that's what they say.
Technically, specifically.
Yeah. But
mock
he's
draft
more,
expert.
he's more equipped than the rest of us for this mock draft. But I've been prepping, so I kind of know my stuff at this point a little bit, 12%. But
Yeah,
I think we're ready to get into it.
Yeah. So at the first pick, Tyler Bonzi, you're on the clock, buddy.
Yes, sir, gentlemen.
Yeah.
All right. So
Wait, one clarifying thing. Are we doing what we would do, or are we doing what we think is going to happen?
I believe it's what we would do because what's the point
Okay.
otherwise?
I agree.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
want to do too. I'm doing okay. Good.
That's what I prepared for.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had the same question, but then I thought it kind of answered itself. Anyway, I'm not going to overcomplicate this. I know there was a lot of talk about CJ Stroud leading up to the draft, but recently the odds have completely shifted. I'm not going to make it any more complicated than it needs to be. I'm taking Bryce Young. I think he is definitely the best quarterback prospect in this draft. I know there's some concerns about the size, and Frank Reich does not always historically like an undersized quarterback. He's more of a prototypical quarterback fan, but I think Bryce Young is the best quarterback prospect in this draft. They need a QB desperately. You don't trade up to the number one pick without taking one there. So not making it any more complicated than it needs to be. You take Bryce Young and you sit on him and you're happy.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah.
That feels right. I mean, earlier in the year, I thought it was going to be Stroud, and I kind of seconded that decision. But it sounds like with that he tested really poorly with that score, which is not everything, but there has been some correlation. It's not like the Wonderlic. The Wonderlic is stupid, but this test has been a little more involved and has seen
Frankly,
more.
I don't think you can go wrong with either one necessarily, but I think
I agree. I'm leaning Young at this point as well.
Yeah,
I like Richardson, honestly, but if they're not taking Richardson, so I like the Young pick for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So,
All right.
Yeah. Number 2, Texans. Kobe, you're on the clock.
I'm on the clock.
Yeah.
I was thinking between a few guys here. There's really a lot of directions that the Texans can go. They pretty much fumbled their chance of getting the guy they really wanted by winning that meaningless game, which seems to happen almost every year in the league at this point. But they're not going to get Bryce if he goes 1. So I think they're going to take Will Anderson. And I think it'll be a very good addition for them. Like, they really need as much help as they can on that roster at this point. They're working it up though. They had a good free agency. I think they added some like decent players, and they got D'Amico Ryans, as we talked about on the pod a few months ago. So I think he will be a good addition to their roster.
Yeah, I definitely, at least personally, I think he's one of those like edge prospects. Like, I don't think he's like Myles Garrett level, or like Chase Young level, but he's a really, really, really good edge prospect. So
yeah, there's been reporting recently that they're seriously considering not going quarterback here, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I do believe it. I wouldn't be surprised. We're not going to do trades in this mock. I wouldn't be surprised if they take Anderson at 2 and then try and move 12 back up into the top 10 to get their quarterback, whether that's Levis or Richardson or Stroud or whoever the one that falls to say 7 or 8, and they could move up to there from 12. I could definitely see that happening. I know Colin Cowherd live on the air like an hour ago got a text and then made a face and then said, I'm not allowed to say anything, but there may be some movement in the top 10 coming up. So maybe that's Houston moving up to get higher. This Arizona pick is obviously one that is definitely being considered for a trade, and I wouldn't be shocked if they traded at 3. But yeah, I'd still be pretty surprised if they went Anderson, but not shocked, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree with that too. So I guess we can move on to the third pick, which is me. So I'm on the clock. And I think most likely, like Declan was saying, I think that the Cardinals are probably going to trade back here with a team that wants to move up for a quarterback. But we're not doing trades in this draft. So we're just here with the Cardinals and who they're going to select at 3. And with the guys available, I think Jalen Carter could definitely be an option. He's probably not probably, he's definitely the best player on the board right now and possibly in the entire draft. But I don't know if he's going to go number 3 because of the whole criminal investigation with the accident and the police investigation and all that. So I don't know if a team's going to pick him this high. I think he might fall into the back half of the top 10. So I think that the Cardinals are going to go with Tyree Wilson at pick 3, who's more of like a raw edge prospect, but he has potential to be like one of the better pass rushers in the league if he puts it all together. He's really explosive and athletic. He's just like he's really raw, like I was saying, but he doesn't like it's stuff that can be fixed in the league. And I think that a team can make him work, and if it pays off, it's gonna look like a great pick.
I agree. They're definitely obviously they're not going quarterback if they don't move. I'd actually be pretty surprised if they don't end up moving that pick. But if they're gonna sit there and take someone, Wilson's on the board. They could go corner. There's a few corners obviously people like. But I actually think Tyree Wilson kind of reminds me a little bit of a prospect as Travon Walker last year. Obviously, was the number 1 pick. I think this is a stronger edge class.
Yeah,
but it's a similar prospect, and then he feels pretty raw. But there's definitely the high upside there.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I was just thinking now he's kind of like I know we've said this a lot. He's a raw prospect. He's kind of an athletic freak, I guess. And I don't know. He reminds me of like obviously. Jadeveon Clowney coming out of college is one of the best prospects at an edge position we've seen, but kind of more of like the NFL version where that's what I think he could be, is where he doesn't put up like super big numbers, but like he makes a huge difference for your team, whether it's the run game or just getting pressures and stuff like that. So I think he can be a player like that.
Yeah. All right. I can go. I believe I have the Colts pick.
Yep.
What I think they will do is take a quarterback. I'm relatively positive of that. And I think it would be Will Levis, because the reporting has been they like Will Levis. They'd love to take him. They want to take him over Stroud. But what I'm going to do is take Anthony Richardson, because I think he's the highest ceiling in the draft. And I know Seattle wants him at 5, so we're taking him at 4. And highest athletic ceiling of any quarterback ever. He's built like Cam Newton, but is faster than Cam Newton. Has a bigger arm than Cam did. Obviously, he didn't have the college resume that Cam had, but and he's a little more raw. But I think if Anthony Richardson, there's no player in this draft that has whose ceiling is higher than Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson could turn you into a perennial Super Bowl contender if you coach him up right and make the right moves. Whereas, I like Stroud. I think Levis could be pretty good, but they're not. I don't think the ceiling is nearly what Richardson's ceiling is. Richardson's ceiling is, shy of Mahomes, but it's in that tier with the Justin Herberts and the Lamar Jacksons and all them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think, like you were saying, Anthony Richardson just has out of this world potential to just. He's like a potential to be a franchise like changer. Like he could turn like you said, the Colts into a perennial Super Bowl contender. And, I still feel like he has a very high floor just because of how good he is as a runner. And that's not going to go away unless he gets like a career changing injury.
Like the worst case scenario for Richardson is kind of what a combination of year 2 Fields and Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts, where they weren't, Hurts wasn't what he was now at that point, but they're like, you can still run this really good rushing offense through him. And I think he showed enough as a pocket passer. And he actually, his process is sound. He goes through his progressions really well. He just, sometimes he has accuracy issues, which can be, that's fixable. I care more about the processing and seeing how fast he seems to take in the information and change his reads than I do about actually making the throws in college. Obviously it matters, but he clearly has the arm talent to make those throws, and you can fix those mechanics. We saw it with Lamar Jackson, where early on he was missing a bunch of throws, and by year 3, it was a non-issue. And I think that could very much be the case with Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, I agree with that. As we move on to number 5, Brad Pollard on the clock.
You're putting me on the clock for the Seahawks.
Yep.
So I had considered Richardson, and I'd thought about it, and I channeled Pete Carroll, who is now 71 years old, probably towards the end of his illustrious coaching career. And I looked at the roster and I said, on the front 3, he has Draymond Jones, Brian Moan, and Jerron Reed. And only one other guy on the depth chart with a DT in his position, Miles Adams. So I am going to take the chance on Jalen Carter and rebuild the front of my defense.
Yeah. I think they that's a high ceiling pick, obviously, and they somebody's gonna roll the dice on Carter, and I think Seattle. I actually think that's probably the highest he'll go is Seattle at 5. I'd be pretty surprised if he went higher than that. Given the history
so now,
there.
Let's go to 5 here. Seattle going D-line over 8.
Sorry.
Somebody's playing. Yeah, I think Carter could obviously change if he hits the way he was supposed to early in this process. That's a steal at 5. But yeah, they're desperate on the D-line, so I absolutely agree with that. They are them, and I believe New Orleans, I think, is the other team. New Orleans has like 2 defensive tackles on the roster. And it's really bad. Seattle's not quite that bad, but Jalen Carter certainly gives that room a boost.
Yeah, they just
needed
like you
boost.
said. What were you saying, Tyler?
I said just a very much needed boost, definitely.
Yeah.
Not a star-studded room at the moment.
No, not at all.
All right, but unless anyone else has something to say, I am back on the clock with the Lions here at pick number 6. And this is a pick that I actually absolutely love the fit of. I am going to go ahead and take Devon Witherspoon from Illinois. He is a physical corner. I love the culture fit there in Detroit. I think that they really need help in the secondary after last year. Obviously, it was not looking great. But he is going to come in and I think immediately make an impact for them. He's fun to watch. I think Detroit fans will be very happy with that pick.
I agree. I think he's the best corner in the class. There's a lot of people like Gonzalez a lot. Obviously,
I think
Porter,
with them, it's more like the distinction of like Gonzalez has all the tools, the height, weight, speed, everything to maybe have a little bit higher of a ceiling. But the Witherspoon's physicality, I just agree with you. I think he's better.
Mm-hmm.
I like the physical press man corners like that, and he absolutely fits the mold of that. And I think they've kind of what they completely whiffed on in Okudah, they can hopefully replace here with Witherspoon.
Yeah,
and they just traded away Okudah, so I feel like it's kind of evident. Like they're kind of showing that they're going to take a corner pretty high in this draft. And I think, at least I've heard, not from like just a play style standpoint, people have compared Witherspoon to how Ramsey plays, where he's really physical in the run game and is also like a man guy. Obviously, he's not like, he's a smaller guy, but he has the similar play style to Ramsey, who obviously is one of the best corners in the league. So yeah, I think they're going to go with Witherspoon as well.
All right, so now I'm on the clock with the Raiders, and I think this is a pretty interesting selection because the Raiders always have some weird oddball draft that like no one really sees coming, that they'll take a position that people thought they might be sound at. But I think they really do need help on the offensive line, which has been a theme, but I think that's where I'm going to go here. And I'm going to take Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern. He's a big force on that line, and he's really going to help them out. Like they need some help desperately to help support Garoppolo, in his first year. I don't know if he's their long-term solution by any stretch of the imagination, but while he's here, I think he's going to be helped out quite a bit by this guy.
Yeah. I'm not a scout, so I don't know everything about these offensive linemen, but I am interested enough to watch some of the tape. I like Skoronski. But I don't think the O-line class is all that strong. So usually we get a top 5 offensive lineman. I think 7's about right for where the first one will go. I think Paris Johnson's obviously in the mix to be picked there. I'm not a huge fan of Paris Johnson. He kind of seems to get away with some technical issues because of how big he is. And Skoronski's definitely more technically sound, it feels like, and I feel like that's the safer pick. So I like that for the Raiders. They definitely need O-line. If they're not going to go quarterback, I like that.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go quarterback. They might, but you never know. And I was between him and Johnson. I think is my top 2 options here, and I just thought he was more sound, like you said, a bit less reliant on his size, and he's a more versatile option for them to go here. So, Yep.
Yeah, I think as a prospect, like I think we're all in agreement that he's probably the best offensive lineman prospect in this draft class. I think he fits more as a guard in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I think he's going, that's not like a knock or anything. I think he's going to be a really elite guard, though. So I think it's a great pick. NFL.com has him compared to Zach Martin, who is a Hall of Fame, probably first ballot Hall of Fame offensive guard, probably the best guard of the 2010s, maybe 20, like, I don't know, but really good, really high level comparison.
Yeah, he's up there.
Peter Skoronski.
Yep. All right. Now it is Zach, is you with Atlanta.
Yeah. Atlanta here. This is an interesting spot for them because they selected Desmond Ridder last year and have voiced publicly that they want and they have him as their starting quarterback next year. So honestly, I don't think they go quarterback here. I think they have a lot of other needs to fill with their roster. I've heard rumors that they might go with Bijan Robinson. I don't really think that they'll do that. I think that they're good with Cordero Patterson and Tyler Algier, I believe, is their other running back. So I think that they go with Christian Gonzalez, the corner. They just cut Casey Hayward. So that frees up a lot of room on that corner in that cornerback room, as they really only have AJ Terrell. So I think Christian Gonzalez is a really good prospect. He's got the build of a corner. He's big, he's tall, he's a man corner. He's really fluid hips. And I think he's going to be a really good player. So I think that they go with Christian Gonzalez to booster that defense that needs a lot of help.
Yep. The defense, obviously they have one corner in AJ Terrell. But you need 2. You can't get by with one corner. And that definitely helps. Atlanta needs pretty much everything. So it's pretty hard to go wrong there. They were a weird team where they were kind of productive because of how well they ran the ball last year, but they have holes all over that roster. And I'm definitely okay with Gonzalez there. I was probably going to go with him for the Bears. I'm a little annoyed, but yeah, it's a good pick.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a similar situation that I was talking about with the Lions, that they just got rid of one of their top corners, so it kind of gives away that they want to go in this draft.
Yeah, I agree.
Move on to the Bears, who traded back to number 1.
Yep, I believe this is my pick with the Bears. I think they're probably hoping and praying that Jalen Carter falls to them here because I think they want to take that chance.
Yeah.
But I don't think I actually do think he's going to go somewhere between 5 and 8, so I don't think he'll be there. So for the Bears, the offensive line's in consideration. Obviously, D-line, edge is something they consider. And I think I'm between 2 edges. I'm going to go edge because I think they'd be interested in if they had stayed at 1 and going Will Anderson. And I'm between Nolan Smith and Lucas Van Ness. Mm-hmm. I think Nolan Smith is generally considered the better prospect, but I like Lucas Van Ness because he can kind of slide inside, go inside, outside. And I think that versatility is something you want in a defense that kind of rebuilding their structure after, trading their vets in Roquan and Robert Quinn and kind of restarting that defense. They just added Tremaine Edmonds, which was weird because they traded Roquan, but I'm not going to get into their financial decisions that were odd at this point. But I think Lucas Van Ness, this might be a little bit of a reach, but I really like him as a prospect. He can move inside and outside, kind of in the way I felt about oh god, now I'm blanking on his name. The guy who went to the Chiefs last year, who I really liked, the edge rusher.
I know who you're talking about. What's his name? The guy from Purdue.
Karlaftis.
Yeah, Karlaftis. I really liked Karlaftis last year, and he reminds me of him a little bit in his versatility. And so I'm going Lucas Van Ness at 9 for the Bears.
Yeah, I do want to say one interesting thing about him. He's a really young prospect, but he also, interestingly enough, never started a game at Iowa and was still a huge difference maker. And I don't really think that's a problem. I think that's how he's going to be used in the NFL as well, where he's just like a situational guy that wreaks havoc when he's on the field. So I think that's a good pick. Yeah.
All right. 10 for the Eagles, I believe, is
Mr.
Brad Pollard on the board.
So feeling very blessed to pick for the Eagles, because in my college days there were no Ravens, and I was a University of Delaware student, so the Eagles were my team. It was the Reggie White era. It was a great time to be an Eagles fan. And as I look at their roster, I wanted Lucas Van Ness. It was one of my considerations. They have a good defensive line. Brandon Graham is getting old, but that's not a reason to draft here. And I look at that roster and I think, what's the one thing that's missing? And you got a quarterback. You got a quarterback on a 5-year deal. You got to win now. So I am going to align myself with MJD and Peter Schrager and take Bijan Robinson, which I think makes them a very dangerous team.
Yeah, make him great in Madden for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my.
I thought about the Nolan Smith. I thought about Dalton Kincaid, giving them another tight end, but their stat, I mean, Goddard's there. So I'm like, I think it's a great pick. And I think Howie Roseman, I don't think he takes him there. I think he drafts back. I think he trades back and takes him later, but I do think that he ends up being the Eagles' first pick.
I think the Eagles move back from 10 unless there's a blue chip prospect that falls. If Jalen Carter falls to 10, I promise the Eagles are taking that chance.
For sure.
Or if a guy like Witherspoon or Gonzalez is there, I mean, they already have 2 corners, but they're pretty loaded everywhere that they might, Slay's older, Bradbury's even 30. So it would make sense for them to go get another corner there. Not that they need it, but if there's a top 5 level prospect like that, I think they take him. Otherwise, I do kind of expect them to trade back. But Bijan, I'm in camp. No running backs until like at least the 24th ish pick, unless I don't think Bijan's Saquon, so I wouldn't do that. But I do think it makes their offense really, really, really scary.
I think for any other team, I would be there. I think this is
the fair. I mean,
only team I would draft him there.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. Like, I don't know if it's the most efficient use of capital, especially if it was a team that wasn't just in the Super Bowl that was picking here. But I think Bijan will make their offense very electric in this hypothetical situation that we're putting ourselves in. And I don't think the Eagles fans would be mad about this. He would be the best running back they've had since probably Shady or what have you.
Yeah, they also just don't really have any glaring needs, to be honest. Yeah. So it's kind of it's a major luxury pick. And
absolutely,
he would definitely.
Thank you, New Orleans.
Yeah, he would definitely improve their offense even past where it is.
For sure.
Yeah, obviously we were all saying he's not Saquon, but he is probably the best prospect we've had since Saquon.
Yeah,
not really
probably
close to Saquon, but he's an elite running back prospect that, like we said, will be a luxury pick for them because they don't really have that many other needs. So this team that just went to the Super Bowl is only going to get better.
Watch a little bit of film on the guy. He runs routes against corners.
No, he's crazy good. Yeah, I don't think he's Saquon as a prospect, but I also think he's not. Who's the next best prospect we've had a running back since Saquon? Najee Harris, maybe. He's also got a pretty
maybe.
Yeah, he's also got a pretty big gap between him and the next guy. So, Saquon was generational. I don't quite think Bijan is that, but he is a 5 years ago. He's going top 10 unquestionably. I think the league has kind of evolved even further into the not picking running backs early. So I'd be pretty surprised, but I also think it'd make them terrifying. That's for sure. Bomsey, I believe you're up with the Titans.
Indeed, I am. And this board has fallen in an interesting way for me here at this pick. I was hoping originally to get Peter Skoronski, so good pick there, Kove. Um, and they could still go O-line, maybe Paris Johnson. That's not where I'm gonna go here. I'm also actually not gonna go with another wide receiver to help out Devin Burks. I just with the way this board has fallen, man. I mean, with the roster that the Tennessee Titans have, I don't think you're going to get a better opportunity to pick your quarterback of the future. And I am going to go with CJ Stroud here. I mean, I know that maybe there's been some doubts recently, especially with the test score he got recently, but frankly, I think that would put him in a pretty good situation where he can sit behind Tannehill for a couple years. It's not like they need to switch in and bring him in for every game right away. I think I don't expect him to still be there, frankly, at their pick in the real draft. But if he is, I would be shocked if they didn't take him.
Yeah, and the sitting behind Tannehill thing is a good point because a lot of times people will say, "Oh, this guy can sit behind whoever for a year," and whenever somebody like they'll sign somebody, Mike Glennon was signed to play in front of Trubisky. We have the signings. Trubisky ironically was signed to sit in front of Pickett. That never works. The player they signed to sit in front of somebody never actually ends up playing more than 5 or 6 weeks. But when you have an established quarterback like an Alex Smith, like a Ryan Tannehill in this case, like Flacco was when he was in front of Lamar, and so on, that's when you can actually give the quarterback a chance to develop and sit behind them, and you can actually survive a year with them sitting. So if the Titans or the Vikings are the two teams I'm looking at, if a quarterback falls there, where you can actually Kirk Cousins isn't losing that job in year one to say Will Levis, and Tannehill isn't losing that job in year one to somebody, or at least not till week 10, 11, 12. So I definitely I think the Titans is a great place for a quarterback to come in and learn, and I think Stroud would be a good fit there. It's a little weird, it's a little funky to me because Stroud almost feels like the least projecty of all these quarterbacks. Like it's like if it was Richardson or Levis, I'd totally get sitting behind Tannehill. Stroud might push him earlier, so it'd be interesting. But yeah, I don't imagine he'll be there in the draft. But if he is, I can't imagine they won't take him. And now here at 12,
Yeah.
there's another quarterback on the board that I imagine Kovahey might consider picking for the Texans.
Yeah,
It's funny you
as
should say
said,
that.
I don't,
Because
I don't
I
think
was,
he'll be there. I don't think this is how the board will fall in the real
No,
draft.
I think
but
I think
given the
Arizona trades out.
situation
Yeah.
that we're here, I gotta take CJ Stroud.
Yep.
yeah, so I was just looking around, like as it was coming to my pick and seeing if maybe I could get a quarterback of value here as the Texans after they already passed on one with number two. They might be surprised at some of the options that were getting close to them, but after Bombsy picks Stroud, who honestly I forgot was available for a second there. I was like assuming he was already gone at this point, but I am going to select Will Levis. Thank you for putting into the draft machine already. I think that Kentucky product, Will Levis will be a good addition for them to start off with. I mean, they need a quarterback desperately. Like it really can't be said any simpler. They haven't had a valid replacement since they traded Watson away, or really since Watson started doing inappropriate things with people. But yeah, I think Levis will step in pretty soon and be a good quarterback for them. I know some people in this chat like Levis a lot, so it's a good pick for them in my opinion, and they get him at a pretty good place to, even if they passed on possibly Stroud at 2, they should not be mad about how their draft has gone so far with him and Anderson already.
Yeah, I'm a Will Levis guy. This is one of my favorite quarterback classes I've seen in a while, and I think Will Levis. I've gone back and forth, but the reports are the Texans like him at 2. So obviously, if they like him at 2, they'll love him at 12. And clearly, that's an upgrade over long neck boy they have there right now in Davis Mills. But
long neck boy.
But yeah, I don't imagine we're seeing quarterbacks go 11 and 12. I find that hard to believe. Pause for a second. Did Brad Pollard just have a Zoom background of himself so he could leave the screen? That's some savvy stuff right there.
I didn't,
I'll
I
check.
didn't see it because of the share screen.
We better
That's
hope
high
some
level.
GMs in real life aren't doing that. It's like, hey,
Zoom.
Mr. DaCosta, who are we picking? He's in the kitchen getting peanuts or whatever.
Zoom professional.
Wow.
Well, there's
That's
a chair in
impressive.
front of you.
You can see the chair, but
Oh my
All
god.
right. Well, I believe it is now Zach is
pick.
up with the Jets, which we're not 100% sure this pick won't be the Packers pick, but I'm pretty sure the Packers aren't getting their first rounder for Rodgers.
Yeah.
But we expect that trade to happen in the next few days. But yeah, where do we think the Jets are going to go here?
Yeah, I'm gonna go into this pick assuming that Aaron Rodgers is gonna be on the roster before the season starts. So quarterback is completely out of the picture. And I think that they're still gonna be able to get Rodgers while being able to keep this first round pick. So there's a good bit of options for what the Jets need. They really need a right tackle or just a tackle in general. They could use a tight end. And then they could also maybe use another corner or a safety. But I think that I'm going to go with a guy who just recently has been rising up draft boards. I'm going to go with Darnell Wright out of Tennessee, who's probably the best or the second best right tackle prospect in the draft. I think that if Mekhi Becton stays healthy, obviously, we know how good of a prospect and player he is. So I think they go with a right tackle to shore up the offensive line, to protect their quarterback and hopefully Aaron Rodgers. And I think that their wide receiving room is good enough already. And I think that, that maybe they could wait on a tight end or another prospect. So I think they go with an offensive lineman, Darnell Wright.
Yeah. I love Darnell Wright. That's who I was going to take at 14 for the Patriots. There's some more offensive linemen, so I'll survive. But I think that's a great pick.
I think next we have Declan.
It's me here with the Patriots, and I was considering going right. Receivers kind of interesting. They have receivers at this point. Do they sign Juju and stuff? They have some okay guys. I don't see them going wide out round one. If one of those quarterbacks had fallen, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Bill Belichick pulled the trigger on a guy like Will Levis, who clearly has a much higher ceiling than Mac Jones. But if they stay put here, I think they're going to go tackle because they need a tackle. And I personally like the tools Broderick Jones has more than Paris Johnson Jr. So I'm going to go with Broderick Jones here at 14 for the Patriots. And I think it's a good fit. I think he's a big guy, played tackle in the SEC. So, sometimes we get those project tackles that we're not quite sure on. And as much as I think this tackle class is not as top heavy as some years past, but there is kind of that bunch with, Wright and Jones and Skoronski and Paris Johnson, where these are definitely first round tackles. And I like Broderick Jones at 14 for the Patriots. Yep.
Yeah, he comes from Georgia, who obviously produces a lot of really good NFL players. So I feel like if you're taking a guy from that high level of a school, and Belichick obviously likes players from winning colleges, so I think that pick makes a lot of sense. And
he's either going Georgia or Alabama tackle or Ohio State or whatever, or he's taking some wild school we've never heard of, third round projected prospect here.
Yeah.
Honestly, they're probably going to trade down, but we'll see. I do think tackle's a huge need. Tackle or edge. There's some interesting. Nolan Smith was on the board. That would have been interesting. They feel like a team that would love Lucas Van Ness, and if he was still on the board, I'd be pretty surprised if he got past the Patriots at 14 or maybe the latest Pittsburgh at 17, because that's kind of their kind of edge prospect. They love those kinds of players.
Also, NFL.com, just to say this really quick, NFL.com has him compared to Andrew Thomas, who was arguably the best left tackle in the league last year. So it's a really high level comparison. And also, I just found this out here in his draft profile. He played high school basketball, so he's an athlete. So that's a guy that has a high upside.
Yeah. All right. I believe Brad Pollard's on the board again at 15.
Green Bay.
So I look at Green Bay's roster and I listen to the media, and I think would they really take a wide receiver to spite Aaron Rodgers on the way out the door?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think they might, but I actually think if they want to do the best thing for the team, if it was my team and Jordan Love is taking over as quarterback, I'm taking Dalton Kincaid and giving him a weapon. Tight end's a young quarterback's best friend, right? And I think he's a Pro Bowler in the making, and I think that's what they're going to end up doing, and that's what I would do.
The Packers haven't had a stable tight end in what feels like years.
Tunyon left, right? Did Tunyon went somewhere?
Yeah,
Tunyon went to Chicago.
Tunyon had a good year a few years ago, but then he got hurt as soon as he was ascending. Obviously, Jimmy Graham wasn't what they hoped. Not since like the 3 years of Jermichael Finley can I remember them having a really, really solid tight end.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list now. It's Josiah DeGura is their number one tight end.
Yeah, they're definitely feel like a team that's going tight end at some point in this draft. But it's a deep class, so maybe round 2, or maybe with that Jets pick in round 2 that they're probably going to get. But yeah, Kincaid would be game changing for them. And they don't, they're not super deep at receiver, but obviously Watson was awesome last year and is going to keep ascending. Romeo Dobbs is a good player, so they're not desperate at receiver. And I definitely think they can get away with going tight end here.
Yeah, he's definitely he's going to be really helpful for Jordan Love if they select him. He's going to be a guy like a security blanket that Love can rely on. Maybe not making, huge plays, but someone that's always going to be, open, someone you can get the ball to. He's compared to Zach Ertz on NFL.com. So I feel like a player for a young quarterback is, a really good player to have on your offensive roster.
Yep.
Okay. It is now my pick at
Commanders.
No.
Shit.
Wait.
Aaron Rodgers just got traded.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, he did get
Wait,
traded.
what?
Aaron Rodgers has been traded
Oh,
to
now our mock
What?
draft's all
the
fucked up.
New York Jets.
Well, fuck.
All right, it's fine.
It's
The Jets get pick
all-
15 and the Packers got
changes
pick
some stuff
13.
around though.
Yeah, so I think we can assume.
I think it'll stay the same, honestly.
Yeah, Kincaid goes 13 instead, and Wright goes 15. Maybe you can flip Broderick Jones and Darnell Wright. Regardless, 2 tackles going to the Jets and Patriots, and Kincaid going to the Packers in our mock. But they finally just
good thing they got it done.
Yeah, the pick it's pick 15 and a 5th rounder is what the Jets get, and the Packers get pick 13, the Packers' 2nd round pick. So like we were saying, the Jets could go in another direction at pick 42, and a 6th round pick, and a conditional 2024 2nd round pick that becomes a first if Rodgers plays 65% of the snaps. So that's probably a 1st round pick next year.
Damn.
The Jets probably gave up 2 first-round picks to get Rodgers.
Well, no, because it was 15 and 13. So they gave up 1. They just moved.
Okay,
they
true.
moved down
True.
2 spots.
Yeah, they got
moved,
yeah. All right. So they gave up 1.
Yeah, that's right. That's
back
right.
2 picks. Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
terrible.
I have even bigger news, guys. Really quick. Tyler Huntley has signed his restricted free agent tag.
Oh, whoa!
Bomb, massive bomb.
Game changer right
there. Snoop to Odell, 2024. All right.
All right, yeah. We'll keep the draft board the same and just say Packers pick Kincaid at 13 and Wright goes 15. The Jets. We can go to Bonzi at 16 with the Commanders now. After that bomb live on air.
We've had
All
a
right,
few bombs like that. On this podcast.
Yeah, we've had a few live reactions with the Lakers trade a while ago.
The Commanders need a lot of help. They got a lot of holes on that roster. And there's a couple spots they could go here. I was looking at Kincaid, but obviously he's off the board. I could go with Paris Johnson Jr. here. I think they might like somebody who is able to slide in somewhere else on the offensive line to start out and potentially transition back to tackle eventually. So what I'm going to do is actually address the secondary and go Deontay Banks out of Maryland. I know he's a little bit smaller school guy, but maybe a little bit of a reach. But I think he can definitely come in and make a difference. Like I said, they just have so many holes on the roster at this point. They just got to get somebody in there to help out and address the next hole, frankly.
I love Deontay Banks. Maybe I'm biased because we're all from Maryland, but that's
Yeah.
I'm putting that aside. I'm not a big college football guy. He's a long, lanky corner he is crazy athletic. He's fast. I think he. I'd be pretty surprised if he's there at 22 if the Ravens don't take him. I'd be very happy with that. Obviously, there's more refined cornerback prospects in this class, but he might be my favorite cornerback prospect in this class, and I think that's a great pick. I don't think it's too high at all for Banks. I definitely like him more than Porter. Porter's a good player, but he feels like he kind of gets if he's not going to jam, if he doesn't jam you at the line, he kind of doesn't have a plan after his press man fails, and if you're going against elite receivers, especially in that Commanders division, I definitely think Banks is the better pick to cover guys like AJ Brown and CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, as someone that actually goes to Maryland here, I think I can speak decently on how Deontay has played for us, and he's been definitely a great piece to have. We're gonna miss him next year in that secondary, and you guys know that Maryland's produced some pretty good secondary pieces the last couple of years. They got Savage, J.C. Jackson, stuff like that, so they have a decent track record coming. And Deontay was also born in Baltimore, so he gets to stay pretty local if he goes to the Commanders. So yeah, I like that pick.
Side note,
and I'm on the clock now, so I guess I can.
Side note quickly, Rodgers is going to wear
Rodgers
is going to wear number 8. That's disgusting, and I hate it. All right, that's my only point.
Yeah, that's gross.
Yeah, I thought he would wear 12 since he got permission, but
yeah.
Anyway, so on the topic of the Steelers, this is tough because I know the Steelers always seem to find good receiver talent. And they just traded for Allen Robinson, who isn't really anything anymore. But at this point, it would be really hard for them to pass on Jackson Smith-Njigba, to help out Kenny Pickett or whoever ends up being their quarterback of the future. I mean, JSN's a beast. Everyone knows that by now. It's unfortunate that we didn't get to see him really put his full talent on display last season. But when he's out there, he is a very, very, very special receiver. And this class is not complete without him. So yeah.
I think JSN is the best receiver in this class, and I actually don't think it's all that close. He's by far the most refined. He's a little smaller, but he's not. He's 5'11", almost 6 feet. He moves well. He actually ran better than people expected. I like that pick a lot. That said, I do think there's something to the fact that Jordan Addison played with Kenny Pickett at Pitt.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that Pittsburgh, we've seen now a few times that reconnecting the college receiver to the college quarterback work out. Obviously the most famous example being Chase and Burrow. And obviously Kenny Pickett and Jordan Addison is the most, knockoff dollar store version of Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. But I think that might be the direction they go if they go receiver. But that's not what I would do. I would definitely take JSN. I think JSN is the best receiver in this class. But I like with Addison on the board and with Joey Porter on the board, I find it hard to believe those deep Pittsburgh connections between, Pitt with Addison and then obviously Joey Porter's father with the Steelers. I'd be surprised if they don't go in one of those two directions.
Yeah, I agree with that. But on the topic of just Jackson Smith-Njigba, he has a comparison to Jarvis Landry on NFL.com, which is, when Jarvis was younger and with the Dolphins, he was a top tier Pro Bowl every year type of receiver who was really reliable. And that's good, again, for a young quarterback, kind of like we were talking about with Kincaid and Love, having a guy that you can rely on that's going to be able to get open and we know is a really good route runner will be a good asset for Pickett. But I do kind of agree with you when you were talking about Addison. I think that Pickett has been, I'm pretty sure I've heard reports that Pickett has been vocal to the Steelers front office saying he wants Addison because of their, they played together at Pitt. But I do agree that JSN's the best prospect here. And just a fun little stat here. I didn't even realize this, but in his last 5 contests in the 2021 season, he averaged 192 receiving yards per game. Talking about JSN.
Absurd.
So
I don't think
that's
that's
the level
a
of
bad
talent
pick
they're
for
going to
the
be getting.
Steelers.
He's crazy talented. Definitely a good pick.
We move on to 18, the Lions. Bonzi, you're picking for the Lions again?
Yes, I am. So I am going to continue to look to build up the defense here. We helped out the secondary with the last pick, bringing in Devon Witherspoon. I am gonna go right up front and pick Kalijah Cansey. Obviously, he is going to draw some comparisons to another smaller Pitt defensive lineman. I don't think he is Aaron Donald by any means, but I think he will be a very solid player, and the Lions really don't have a whole lot going on their D-line right now, aside from Aiden Hutchinson on the edge. So bring in some extra help up front, and hopefully we can make a big jump on the defense next year from where we were a year ago.
Yep. Good pick.
Yeah, he pretty dominated the combine, and he's got a pretty crazy comparison on NFL.com. He's compared to John Randall, the Hall of Famer.
Oh my God.
What do they even do?
It was 6'1", 290, so a smaller guy, but he did have a pretty fast 40, which doesn't really matter for the defensive tackle position, but I don't know. He's a very good prospect. John Randall is a bit
Yeah, we get comps like that. We get some of those comps. It's like, so I think Dan Orlovsky was like, Anthony Richardson is like the combination of Lamar Jackson and Peyton Manning. Like, what are you talking about? But yeah, the comps are fun.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, buddy.
Yeah.
I feel like Cansey could also, since he's a bit smaller, they might be able to move him outside and play him as an edge sometimes as well, or maybe just a defensive end in some schemes. So
kind of like another Pitt D lineman that came out about 10 years ago, Aaron Donald. Obviously, he's not Aaron Donald, but just in the flexibility of positions, you can kind of move him around.
Mm-hmm.
I believe I'm picking at 19 with Tampa Bay. For a second there, I thought one of these quarterbacks would be here. I hate Hendon Hooker, not personally. I'm sure he's a great guy. But I do not think he's
a robot himself.
He is. He drops back and he just stands completely still for 3 seconds and then throws the ball. I hate it. If I was going to go quarterback, I'd go Jake Haener. But I'm not going to go quarterback because I don't think Jake Haener's any good either. I think the plan here is find a position player that'll help you in the long term, but isn't going to help. Who's their quarterback? It's Kyle Trask, right?
Trask, the guy from.
So I think
Florida.
Paris Johnson has fallen here. Donovan Smith has not been the left tackle you'd want him to be in the past few years. Obviously, worse on the other side has that locked down, but he is coming off an injury. So I would go Paris Johnson here, get your bookend tackles, and then hopefully you lose all your games this year and get Caleb Williams next year that you have now bookend tackles for. That's the plan. Stink this year. They could be so bad. I think they should just trade away. Trade Godwin, trade all their win now players. I guess Baker's there now. Forgot about that for a second, but
he could start, but still.
Yeah, but
you just explained what my plan was. You just explained what my plan was for the Titans if a quarterback wasn't there.
Yeah. But yeah,
just trade away Derrick Henry.
Keep the young players, keep Wirfs, get another bookend tackle, and then you're good to go from there. But yeah, I think Paris Johnson, I don't think any of these other quarterbacks are worth taking.
Yeah, definitely not.
All right, so we're moving on to Seattle here. Brad Pollard, you are back on the clock.
Pollard back on the clock. So again, looking at the Seahawks roster, there's a lot of holes, but most of them are on defense. And I like Tariq Woolen working out last year as a 5th-round corner, but I think he could use a running mate. So I think I'm going to take Joey Porter here, start building up the back end of that defense.
That's an awesome young corner duo. That would be a lot of fun to watch. Obviously, Jamal Adams is still there. That secondary could be rebuilding the Legion of Boom a little bit. Joey Porter kind of has a little bit of the Sherman stuff in him and how physical he plays. And he has a little bit of issues once he gets off that press. Like if somebody gets off that press, the top end speed isn't quite there, but he is so physical at the point of attack that it's hard to get off that press. And that was kind of the same for Sherman. And he's definitely, he's a Seattle type player. And
I think Carroll loves that guy. I mean,
yeah. The camp battles with DK are going to be great between those two. Two very physical players, but that'd be a lot of fun. I think it's a good fit.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's a big guy, big corner, physical, like we were just saying.
Yeah.
Right,
so Zach, I believe
I'm
you're
on
up
the
with
clock
the Chargers
here. Yeah, with the Chargers. There's a lot of different spots that they could go. This is a really talented roster. But I think that their most glaring need are corner and wide receiver. And, if Joey Porter was here, I think I might have gone with Joey Porter, but he just went to pick before. So I think I'm going to go with a wide receiver here. And I think that I'm going to go with the most explosive guy, which is what they need. And I think I'm going to go with Zay Flowers, who has gotten a lot of praise recently. The Ravens have been he's been mocked to the Ravens a lot, but I think that the Chargers go with him. I've seen a report the past few days that said people don't think he's going to make it outside of the top 20. So I think the Chargers would love to have him. And I think I go with Zay Flowers, the wide receiver out of Boston College.
Yeah, great fit. People like to think the Chargers receivers are awesome because Keenan Allen's has a reputation, and Mike Williams is great, but both of those guys have injury problems, and they're both they don't get any separation like ever. Their entire the game of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams is they're not really open, but they are open. I think it would be nice for Justin Herbert to have a guy who actually looks open every once in a while, as opposed to just throwing Mike Williams contested jump balls, which he'll get most of the time. But I do think they need kind of a separator there. And Zay Flowers is definitely the best guy on the board to do that. Quentin Johnston's another guy who's interesting, but you're just picking Mike Williams again. And I don't think that fits. You kind of, people say, I think Daniel Jeremiah, said this once, your receiver room should look like a basketball team with a bunch of different positions with different roles for everybody. And Zay Flowers would be a good add to that, to be pretty versatile.
He's also a guy that they can use, like you just said, versatile. He's a guy that they can use all over the field. They can probably put him in the backfield as well, and use him in end arounds and stuff like that, trick plays. He's great with the ball in his hands and can make a lot of people miss. So yep, that's what they need, I think.
All right, Kobe.
Okay, I'm on the clock.
You're on the board.
The Baltimore Ravens.
High stakes pick here.
Yeah, I'm not really sure if I know much about this team or their situation, but I guess I'll have to just go off my gut here, and the little tidbits that I've heard about. I do think, it's every year it's just receiver people seem to talk about, which is not even that wrong because this team has no ability to really get good receivers. It feels like, Odell will certainly help. And I think a healthy Bateman and a healthy Duvernay, hopefully for the whole season, can give us. And I guess Aguilar's there too. I don't know if he even counts, but he's there. And so I think wide receiver isn't exactly maybe our top need right now, and especially when, in my opinion, the best player available by a good amount is also at a position of need for the team. And so I'm going to pick Nolan Smith out of Georgia. Very prolific track record. We all got to see what he has been able to accomplish the last couple of years. And, the Ravens like good, pedigree from high-level schools to bring in and hope to contribute right away. And that's what I'm hoping to get right here.
I don't think the Ravens want to go edge round one, but if the board falls like this, where Nolan Smith's on the board, I don't anticipate them being able to resist that urge to take just the best player available, because they always do it. And now with signing Odell did two things. One, you need a receiver. Two, you now can justify not taking a receiver if it gets to that point at 22, or 21, I guess technically, right? Because or is it or I forget if it was 20. Yeah, no,
it's 22.
Yeah, it was supposed to be 23, but the Dolphins were dummies. But yeah, Nolan Smith I think is a steal there. Honestly, with Miles Murphy still on the board, it could be either of those two guys that I'm sure they'd be very happy to have. But yeah, I think they want to go corner or receiver, but all the corners were gone. And I think Flowers and Smith and Jigba are probably the two receivers they like the most. So I definitely like Nolan Smith there.
Yeah, I agree. He has a potential. He kind of reminds me a lot of Odafe, where he's just a really athletic edge that has potential to, explode. Odafe hasn't been, he hasn't made that next step really. He's been a solid player, but I think putting those two guys and pairing them with, Tyus Bowser, guys like that could, help us actually get some sacks, which it doesn't happen often as Ravens fans in the past few years. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
We'd
like
have a
that's
deep room at that
good
point. It'd be, with Bowser and Odafe and Ojabo, you'd have a lot of really young, Bowser's not young. He's 28, 29. But you'd have with Smith, Odafe, and Ojabo, you'd have first round prospect each of the last 3 years that are going to be there at edge, and hopefully one of them pans out to be awesome, right? Or, Odafe's been fine. Ojabo was hurt all last year, so we don't know yet. And I like Nolan Smith too, so we'll see where that goes. All right, 23, the Minnesota Vikings.
I am back on the clock.
Yeah, Zach on the board.
So here at Minnesota's pick at 23, they have a few interesting needs here. I think they need another wide receiver after getting rid of Adam Thielen. I also think that they need another corner. They took Andrew Booth in the first round last year, who played pretty well. So they could use another corner, or they could go edge, because pretty sure they lost Everson Griffin. So they just have Daniil Hunter. But I think that they're going to go with a wide receiver here, and it's tough. I'm deciding between two guys, Johnston and Addison. And it's just a matter of what they want more. If they want more of a guy that you can throw the ball up to in Johnston, who is compared to Alshon Jeffrey on NFL.com, and Addison, who's compared to Lockett. But I think they go with Addison here, who I think is going to be the better player in the NFL. And I think that they're going to want another receiver that can fill the spot that Thielen has left. Right now their wide receiver 2 is KJ Osborne, and their wide receiver 3 is Jalen Reagor. So I think they need someone next to Jefferson so he doesn't get damn near triple on the ball. So I think they go with Addison.
Yeah, I agree. They desperately need a wide receiver 2 at this point. Now that Thielen's gone, I don't even know who. I guess they have Reagor and they have an Osborne, right? Yeah, that's not ideal. And Addison would be a nice compliment for sure. But I don't have much more to add other than that.
I think corner could be a very realistic option here as well, because they just lost Pat Pete, who was excellent for them last year. But I feel like they can live without that other corner after taking Booth last year. I just think that if they don't have a notable wide receiver 2 here, like I said, they might literally just triple team Justin Jefferson. They could live with doing that. Other teams could live with doing that. So I think they go with Addison. But yeah, we can move on to the next pick.
I believe I'm on the board with Jacksonville. There's a few ways I might go here, right? I like Osiris Torrance as a guard. They are kind of in the need for more offensive line here. But I think I'm going to go defense, and I'm between Miles Murphy and Emmanuel Forbes. Murphy is a great edge prospect. They obviously with Travon Walker last year, so they have one of the others on one side, and they still have Josh Allen. So I don't know that they didn't trade Josh. They've been maybe trading Josh Allen for years. I think they still have him. But so I don't think edge is the way to go. I'm going to go with Emmanuel Forbes. He is a very fast corner who is very athletic. You worry a little bit because he's 170 pounds, and that can be a little worrisome for a cornerback in today's NFL. But every team has a small receiver you can stick him on, and I think they're pretty desperate in the secondary. They lost Shaquille Griffin, obviously, and I think they need corner, and he is kind of the last first round corner available. So I think that's the way they go here at 24.
Yeah.
All right. 25 to the Giants. I believe Brad Pollard's back on the board with 25. Yep.
Yes. And I have sources that I've been speaking to about this Giants pick. And they said they wanted Zay Flowers. They wanted Emmanuel Forbes. And I think your Uncle Mark is going to be very frustrated that neither of them were available. He's joining in now to make the pick for the New York Giants. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Levine has joined the call.
Well, thank you, Mr. Pollard. So happy to be here on the podcast. Very exciting times. Mock draft week, big year for the Giants coming up. I'm a little upset with the Jags. They took my quarterback. My receiver got took a few picks earlier. So hold on 1 second. I gotta just do something here. I'm on a call.
Priorities.
Real busy GM. Got a busy GM.
Back. All right. So, we were looking at a corner, when you got Martindale blitzing as much as he does, you need, good defensive backs, but the Jags took mine. So we have a glaring hole in the middle of our offensive line. So the Giants will select John Michael Schmitz, interior lineman, Minnesota.
Best center on the board.
That's how we do it.
There you go.
I got a real Brooklyn native to make this pick.
Yeah. We're gonna phone a friend in for the Giants pick.
That's right.
There's always you get the every year there's one center that goes around pick 25. Last year it was Linderbaum, and it's a perfect fit for the Giants. They need interior offensive line pretty bad.
It was a close pick, Declan, between Schmitz and Tippmann, but I like Schmitz's versatility just a little more.
All right, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm a big center guy, so I like centers in the first round. Linderbaum treated the Ravens well, so that's a sign of a team that's doing good things. I think center in the first round.
What a great selection here.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Uncle Mark, for pulling in for this
Marky.
pick.
Well, thank you guys. Have a good rest of the draft.
Thank you.
All right.
All
right. So I believe I am back on the board here for Dallas at pick 26. And again, this board has fallen in an interesting way for me, to the point where I'm really between two players, and they're both Clemson players, actually, which really makes me mad. But I would love to take Miles Murphy. That would give them an absurdly talented edge of their defensive line. You have Micah Parsons on one side, Miles Murphy on the other, and the other guy I'm with there is right in the same vein. Is Brian Bresee. He actually played high school football right near all of us, so we've been familiar with his name for quite a long time, and with the scheme that the Cowboys run, I think that he might be the better fit given what they already have, given that they already have a fairly crowded edge room, and the 3-4 sort of hybrid scheme with Micah Parsons that Dan Quinn likes to run. So I think I am going to take Bresee here, even though I think Miles Murphy is certainly the better prospect. I don't know that you really can't go wrong with either one of them, but I am going to go with Miles Murphy.
Murphy. We've known Murphy, or not Murphy. Wait, hold on.
I got us all confused now. We've known Bresee.
We've known Bresee for a while, is what I was going to say. Yeah, he was the number one prospect in our senior year of high school. So, yeah.
Declan, are you frozen? Are you there?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I was thinking about my pick upcoming here, but Bresee's a good pick. That's scary. I don't like Micah Parsons and more high level prospects on the defensive line there. That's not something I would want to deal with, so I'm glad they're in the NFC.
Yeah.
All right, it is now my selection again. I'm picking for the Bills here. And this is pretty tough because I feel like the Bills roster is very solid, mostly all around. They have a lot of talent at most positions, and they have a great win now team. I feel like I might just go the best player available again. In my opinion, I think Brian Branch is the best option, and we know that with their safety position is a little bit possibly shaky now with the whole situation, last year. I hope he comes back to full health, but they just cleared him recently, so I'm happy that he's getting back to being the player that he was last year. But I think they have a hole that they could fill with a first round talent right away, and he'd be a great addition to the team.
Yep, I agree. Safety.
Branch is a guy you can move around as well.
Yeah, too. He can play a lot of places. He's kind of a hybrid type player. And I like that for the Bills. I do think this is a sneaky Bijan Robinson spot if he does not go early.
Yeah.
Not that sneaky. People have been saying the Bills should get a running back for years now, but that would certainly make their offense very interesting. But yeah, I like that pick. And I believe for the Bengals, Zach is on the clock with the Bengals here.
Cincinnati Bengals might be my least favorite team in the NFL right now, but I have to draft for them today. So I'm gonna make the right pick here and help out Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals team. I think that I was gonna go with Brian Branch if Covey didn't just take him the pick before, because they just lost Bates to the Falcons in free agency, who was an all-pro level safety. They did just take Daxel last year, who's going to fill in that spot. But I don't think they're going to reach on a safety unless Branch is there. So they have a couple of options here. I think they could maybe go with a tight end. Or I think that they could possibly go. Actually, yeah, I think they're going to go with a tight end here. I'm going to take Michael Mayer for the Cincinnati Bengals, who just add to an even more loaded receiving core. They get Michael Mayer, who's some say he's possibly the best tight end prospect in this class, him or Kincaid. So I think that they add a tight end and an elite receiver who, could turn into a Pro Bowler to this offensive roster.
Yep. I definitely think there's 2 first-round tight ends in this class. And Mayer, there's a long history of Notre Dame tight ends. It feels like, it always feels like there's some Notre Dame tight end every 3 or 4 years coming out that's a first or second round type player. But yeah, they lost Hurst. Obviously, I don't even know who their tight end is right now. Yeah, I think that's a good pick for the
Smith
Bengals.
in free agency.
It's whatever. He's fine.
They're starting tight end, yeah, but they need an upgrade there.
They do. They obviously had Orlando, so their offensive line is actually in a better spot than it's been in a while. But yeah, I
think they could go guard here as well with Torrance, but I don't know. Between Mayer and Torrance, I think Mayer. I think that they just want more explosiveness and more touchdowns. So
yeah. All right. Now for the Saints, I would have liked to go on interior defensive line, but I don't love any of the prospects were left here. I would have liked, Versi would have been a really nice way to go here. Edge rushers, there's still Miles Murphy on the board, and I think that's the way I'm gonna have to go just because their defense needs so much help. It's pretty surprising that he's still on the board here, and I think they have enough holes on that front seven that you can't really be too picky. Obviously, there's still some interior offensive linemen that'd be pretty interesting to go with here, and they could use that as well. But I'm going to go with Miles Murphy for the Saints here at 29.
Yeah, he's been mentioned a few times during this mock, so good to see him finally getting picked. He's a pretty good player from a pretty highly touted school, unfortunately.
Wrongly so.
Yeah.
Nothing against Miles Murphy, obviously. Just Clemson. Fuck them.
We can move on to the next pick. Brad Pollard, you have the Eagles again.
I do have the Eagles again, and I was hoping that Miles Murphy would be there. Again, looking at this roster, it's pretty complete, but what I do notice is that the edge is getting older, and so I'm going to take Will McDonald here as the future replacement for Brandon Graham. I think he's going to be a great player for them.
Yep.
Again, they don't have too many holes on the roster, so definitely good to get younger there while they have the opportunity.
And he can sit behind, like you said, Brandon Graham, who's a highly touted vet, who's a very good player. he can learn from him, and don't have to throw him in.
Where did we go here? Where did we go here?
Will McDonald. Yeah.
Will McDonald.
Okay, there we go. All right. Yep.
All right. So
one more pick.
I am on the clock for the final pick of the first round and final pick of our mock. And I think the Chiefs would be perfectly happy if this is the way the board fell. They could really use another wide receiver talent in there. I believe MVS is really mostly what they got going right now. I mean, they got Kadarius Toney and a couple other guys, but they could definitely use another potential top number one option ever since Tyreek Hill left. So obviously I'm going to go with Quentin Johnston. Easily the best wide receiver, in my opinion, still left on board. And I think that's a pretty easy pick for them if he falls to them.
Yeah. It's like a perfect selection for them because they need a wide receiver pretty badly.
So there you have it, everyone.
There's the mock draft. We'll get one last look at it. Obviously, there's a little section in the 13 to 15 range that got a little screwed up there with the Rodgers trade. But yeah, you can take this to the bank. This is exactly how the first round is going to go. Bet the mortgage on it if you have to, because I can guarantee this is going to happen. 100% guarantee.
Put $500 on Bijan going before CJ Stroud.
Yeah, that's definitely going to happen.
Guarantee that it'll hit.
We personally guarantee a running back's going to go before two potential franchise quarterbacks. All right. So that wraps up the mock draft. That's all we have for today, besides the Nick Miller question of the day. So we can come back to what I was given, the Nick Miller question of the day, draft themed. I requested. I don't have the answer, but he gave me the answer. But I can answer this one. Which school has produced the most NFL draft picks of all time? And if you can get how many, even better. But I don't think
that's 2 points.
That's 2 points.
We're writing it in our notes again.
Yeah, write in your notes and you can show the screen. Oh, I'm between two schools.
Yeah, I feel like everyone is going to be between two schools.
All right, I got my selection.
All right, I did too. All right,
I got
go first.
Written.
Yeah, I can go first. When I thought about this, Alabama and Georgia come to mind, but I went with Florida because they've been so good for so long. I mean, I've had so many highly touted players. So,
all right, do you have a guess of how many?
I have 200.
I have no idea. I have no idea what the number would be.
Yeah, the range
I think it's
very
more
wide.
All right.
I can go next, I guess. I also originally thought of Alabama and Georgia, and then kind of thought about maybe a longer history. So I went with, I'm not going to bother showing my note. I went with Notre Dame, and I also said around 200.
Okay. Kobe?
I was thinking about all these schools as well, but I'm just going to try and go with maybe the most obvious question mark pick of all. I'm going to just say Alabama. And I picked 357. I don't know if that's at all accurate or anything, but that is my guess.
All right, Dad, you got?
I'm gonna say Notre Dame as well, around 520.
All right,
that's what ChatGPT told me.
Oh, well, I said Alabama 711. I assume the answer is what ChatGPT told my dad. The answer is in fact Notre Dame 522.
Okay.
Who needs real intelligence? We have artificial intelligence.
There's disqualification. For Brad Pollard.
I picked it though.
Bomsey gets real credit.
For real.
His prize is a tally that we have not been keeping track of. But
I get a
I should have thought a little bit about this more, bro. I should have picked USC. That would have been a good selection. They were number 2.
Oh. All right. Well,
where's Bama? They have to be in the top 5.
Yeah, I don't know where Bama is. I'm not sure. I'd imagine they're top 5.
I'm looking at the list right now. Alabama is 6th.
Okay.
Right above Penn State, behind Michigan.
All right. Well, that wraps up our mock.
Thanks for having me as a guest, Declan. Thanks for having me as a guest.
Of course.
Your uncle also thanked you. Your uncle had a ball. He loved dropping in. He said, "Tell Declan."
I'm happy to have him.
Yeah. Yeah, we get a special
Awesome.
guest and a special guest inception inside of a special guest. It was great. We
That's
love
awesome.
to see it. And we'll have you back on for more football stuff at some point for sure. But thanks guys, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.
Oh.